And I've got some breaking news for you. A new poll has for the first time put Reform UK ahead of both the Labour Party and the Conservatives. I'm delighted to say we can now speak with the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, welcome to the show. So, a breakthrough moment for the first time ever. You're in pole position. How does it feel?
Yeah, very good indeed, and well timed. I've got a big event here in Clacton this evening, so I hope this news will go down well. Do you know what? All the momentum in British politics is with reform. Why? I think it's because we're optimistic. We believe that with the right leadership, this country can be turned around. I also think many of our potential voters are seeing what's happening in America, where woke is out of the window, DEI people are being suspended, and the economic optimism in America has much to do with the leadership. So, yeah, it's about being optimistic. It's about having real plans. It's about being unafraid to stand up and say things that many in Westminster find awkward and difficult, but out in the country are right at the heart of the debate families, communities are having.
Okay, Mr. Farage, I'm joined by Chris Hope in the studio. He'd like to fire a question at you.
Nigel Farage, I do my podcast called Chopper's Political Podcast. You've been on before, you know about it. Lord Frost, David Frost, has said to us today he thinks there needs to be a coming together in some way of reform and the Tory party. An arrangement maybe if you're both level pegging at the election, or maybe one of you merges the other one into it. I mean, look at the numbers there. You get 190 MPs of an election tomorrow. Conservatives 141. So you'll be anyway forming a government with reform with the Tory party if this comes to pass. Why not start the talks now?
So lots of speculation about, where is reform support coming from? Is it coming from the Conservatives? Is it coming from Labour? Well, overall, there's more coming to us from Labour in the red wall than the Conservatives. But here's the really important point, Chris. The really important point. The reason we're in the lead is 20% of our vote is coming from people who did not vote for anybody in the last general election. And that tells you a lot. It tells you about the level of disenchantment there is with, frankly, the uniparty. There isn't much to choose on the really big issues between the Conservatives' record in government and what Labour are doing now. I mean, mark you, Labour are even more incompetent, if you can believe that. So what we're getting here is something completely fresh and brand new happening in politics. Now, over the course of the last 2 weeks, I've received phone calls and texts from people who have been consistently publicly abusive about me for the last quarter of a century. Why are you wasting your time? Leave it to us Conservatives. We'll sort the mess out for you. And actually, far from sorting the mess out, they would never, ever have even given us a referendum on EU membership if I hadn't put pressure upon them. Then they promised me once it was done that they control immigration to allow net up to 1 million people a year to come into our country. Now those people who told me to pack my bags and go home now say, let's have a deal. Well, the reason they're doing that is they know their support is on the slide. And if you look at places like Wales, where you see we're now over 12 points ahead of the Conservatives, they fear that when voters see that actually reform is the credible party of opposition against Labour, they fear their poll numbers could collapse. So when it comes to doing a deal with people that in 2019 I trusted and gave a pass to, and who let me down and the country down, no thank you very much indeed.
Nigel, could I ask you about your time in America? I mean, it was astonishing scenes, a genuinely revolutionary speech from Donald Trump. Many people were just saying this is just off the charts in terms of nation first, blowing woke out of the water. Did you pick up any tips? Have you more to the point, bumped into anybody out there who might give you a few quid as to Mr. Musk? Is the bromance back on?
Well, look, as far as Musk is concerned, we're in talks. We're perfectly friendly. We have different views on some things, but Martin, I don't get pushed around by anybody, not even the richest man in the world. I know what I believe in. I know what my principles are. We're on good, friendly terms. What was really interesting with that big speech that Trump gave, and what an amazing speech it was, uplifting, positive, about nation, about family, about community, about law and order. What was remarkable is I then reread the Reform UK contract with the people from the last general election. So many issues on which we're aligned with Trump and which the American people have just voted for in large numbers. And I think they're going to begin to do that here. Are there things I can learn from him? Well, I've got to tell you, I don't think you're going to see me at a reform conference with village people on stage and me dancing with them. I'll leave that one to him. But joking aside, the optimism that I was getting from taxi drivers, from bartenders, people feeling, wow, we're off to the races. We're going to make money. We're going to do well. There's a renewed confidence in America. And you come back here where everything, frankly, is as miserable as sin. The contrast could not be greater. We're about providing optimism. We're about providing solutions. And we're very much of the mind that the old two-party system that has governed us since 1918 is now no longer fit for purpose. Britain is broken. Britain needs reform.
Okay, back to Chris.
But, I mean, obviously, you can't get ahead of yourselves here. You've been around for long enough to see polls go up and polls go down. I mean, the other parties are saying this is only a poll. I mean, there's no trend here yet, is there? You're on 5 MPs. You're way behind the Tories on over 120, and, of course, Labour's landslide. I mean, there's a huge distance to go between now and the election. And how will you maintain this momentum?
I haven't mentioned the poll, Chris. You have. All I said is we have got the momentum in British politics. Now, you're quite right. Politics is a game of snakes and ladders. And you can think you're doing terribly well, get to number 86 and go back down to 37. You know, that can happen. I know that. Right now, what I see is we're building, we're professionalising, we're selecting our candidates with rigour. And I just think events are coming our way. You're quite right. To maintain a lead for the next 4 years or whatever it is until the next general election won't be an easy thing to do. And I'm quite sure that the establishment won't exactly come out with a tray of gin and tonics. They'll be very, very worried about us and our strength. But I can just see a political movement that is building across this country that has terrific enthusiasm, knows what it wants to do. And, you know, Chris, ask me again in 6 months or a year. But something very big is happening here. Don't underestimate that.
Nigel Farage, when you look at the previous 6 polls from the same company, there is that momentum thing. The Conservative has slipped by 4 points. The Labour Party have slipped by 3 points. And Reform UK have gone up by 4 points. If you aggregate the last 2 months, 6 polls. So there does seem to be that momentum going on. Zia Yousaf keeps saying he believes you are going to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Do you believe that? Do you believe you can do that? And are you up for the job?
Well, the history books say, of course, we can't win the next election because no one new has ever come along before and done that. And it took the Labour Party 30 years to form their first government in 1924. But we're living through different times. We're living through a communication age with social media and much else where we can access information and make our own minds up in a way that we never, ever did before. Can we do it? Yes. And if we get there, would I be up for it? You bet your life.
Okay, Nigel, as I have you here, could I just get a quick reaction to you about the political aftermath of the Southport murder trial yesterday? Sir Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch both playing politics straight after that. What's your take on how things have been handled, what it means for the future of the country, particularly with Prevent and their huge failings?
Well, I mean, our ability to stop terrorists is dismal. But I think what's even worse is the cover-up. You know, Kemi Badenoch knew the identity of this guy. The Labour Party knew the identity of this guy. All I did was ask a simple question. Why are we not being told the truth? Is this man known to the authorities? And for daring to ask that question, I got absolute vilification and hatred, which came from senior politicians and many mainstream broadcasters and newspaper columnists. I was right all along. And if the public had known the truth about this guy, crazy conspiracies would not have spread online, and those riots would have been nowhere near as bad as they were. And I just think, once again, we come across issues like this where the establishment haven't got the courage to face up to it. All Keir Starmer can do is talk about the far right. Well, what about some of the evil ideologies that are allowed to persist within our community. This young man, 10 times was stopped taking a knife to school, had said extreme things. And the fact that he was free to go and commit those murders is an absolute tragedy. Trouble is, I don't really have confidence that Prevent or the government can do much about it. And for the Crown Prosecution Service to tell the police, to tell the Merseyside police not to give the basic background information about this man, that's a real disgrace. And the head of the CPS, his head should roll.
Okay, Nigel Farage, thank you very much for joining us today on GB News. Reacting to that bombshell report, the poll that Reform UK for the first time is in the lead in a national poll. Nigel Farage, thank you very much for joining us on the show.